so that Courtney had to step out for a second. So just make sure that she is able to hear what's going on today. All right. So how do you think, like, we'll step away from this because I do know it's a hard question. How do you think evaluation research works? What do you think the process is? Like, take what you know about research, what you've learned this semester, and then apply it to every other practitioner-focused class: corrections, community corrections, intro to policing, criminal investigations, whatever. And tell me, how do you think a research process would work in an agency like that? How do you think researchers are treated within agencies? Okay, there's probably an element of hostility, put it that way. Anyone think different?
I think kind of bouncing off what you said, there's that element of hostility, you know, you're not doing it the right way, you know, there's critical talent. So you know your facility operating, you know, and having to deal with some of the researchers.
Okay. So there's an element of, are we following best practices? If so, we should be fine. What else? I mean, all of you have jobs, correct? Some of you have worked before. Would you like a researcher to be evaluating you? Okay, that's an excellent point. And this is one of the elements that gets a lot of pushback from practitioners, is the idea that how do researchers know your job as a practitioner better than you do? So this was something that I don't know, or I don't think I assigned this article, but something that Ed Latessa did in corrections, right? Again, that big, really sad journal art or journal issue from this year concerning how he worked within agencies and what steps he took to make sure that he was doing right by those agencies. Okay. And this is something, again, that if you're considering this path, particularly this career path of like working within agencies, doing research, that you would have to consider. How is your behavior, your presence in the agency going to impact how the agency works? Okay. So, what questions do you think research within agencies generate? What questions would evaluation research aim to answer? If you're evaluating a policy, what are you trying to do? See if it's effective. Okay, that's one type. Okay, comparing practices. Goes back into that, are you effective? Another type.
Are there identifiable gaps in operation?
Okay, are there problems? Pretty straightforward, right? So the different types of research that we have are aimed at, is this thing actually working the way it's supposed to? And are there problems? Okay, so these types of research come together to generate evidence. And that's the key part of this type of research, is we want to create and share the results of any interesting policies so that we can improve other agency policies. So one of the things that, for instance, Logan, remind me what you're wanting to do for your paper. Okay, child abuse and future offending. Let's say that there is a particular agency that you're working with, and that is your goal. You want to see if you can reduce the likelihood that abused children are going to go on to offend later. So you put in place a policy. The children are getting X, Y, and Z. Don't know what those are. All right, that'll be you, the practitioner, who decides that. You still want to make sure that you're not making kids worse, and you're actually making it less likely that they're going to offend, right? So the way that you would do that is you would structure the implementation of that policy like an experiment as best you can. Okay, same for things like problem analysis. A key component of that research would probably be identifying beyond just abuse what makes a kid more likely to offend. Okay, because then you might have to triage or prioritize different groups of individuals to getting the treatment over individuals who are less likely to offend. That make sense? So if your policy actually works, you'd want to share the results outside the agency, because your goal isn't just to improve the Alice County Correctional Department, it's to improve all correctional departments. Okay. And this is something that we do fairly frequently. So an example of evaluation research would be something as simple as hotspots policing. So they start this process by looking at the location data for a particular type of incident. So this map is an older map of all reported gunshots and assaults and deaths with firearms in Baltimore, I think for, what was it, 1 month or 2 month period. It was fairly short. Okay. It's Baltimore, which is why there are so many hotspots. All right. So what the researchers would do in this case would be to analyze all of the data corresponding to a similar class of incidents. So in this instance, firearm related crimes. Okay. With this information, we tried to identify any common factors, right, beyond just the location. Is this a particular group of offenders? Is this a particular reason? Are all of these specific types of places, right? With this information, we try to develop a policy that would address the incidents where there is that common factor, right? Any policy that the city of Baltimore would put into place would not address all homicides, all assaults, all firearm related crime. It would narrow it down and tailor that policy to a specific class of incidents. Make sense? So how would we do this in practice? Let's pick something different.
Like within criminal justice, or can it be?
Yeah, let's do outside the criminal justice system. As soon as I find my marker. No. Yeah. Isaac, you seem to have an idea.
I'm trying to think of like a psychology one. Because in social psychology, we kind of talked about different things, but they aren't like groundbreaking like this one was.
Well, To be fair, hotspot policing has been around since the 90s, so it ain't groundbreaking anymore.
What about um, like voter turnout with regards to like access to polling locations?
Okay. What are we doing? What are we changing about it, how an agency works to improve voter turnout?
What locations or services an agency provides?
Okay. I got it. What else would we need to do to make this study work?
Look at the voter turnout before and after,
Okay.
added new locations.
Speaking of voting, did y'all vote last week?
Yes.
You lived here for how long?
Changed over yet. I mean, I haven't changed it since my primary address was no longer a real address.
Reason why I'm bringing this up is because I went and voted last week at 6-ish. And I was number 38. And seriously, I live in the student section. My wife was number 37, to give you an idea. City council commission was up for election last year, or last week. School board doesn't really matter, because y'all ain't in K-12, and y'all aren't kids. At least in the school district. But there was a 19-year-old running for city council.
And,
I think so. I have no opinions about his mental health or anything like that, but shit made me feel a little like a slacker, which is unusual since he's 19 and running for city council of a 25,000 person city. So how would we get you to vote? Since you two voted, and I'm assuming you live in the student section of town.
I'm not registered here, but I got it. I did early voting back home.
I see. You registered vote here. So how can we get you to vote here? Because there was one of those Tiger board things in the union about should we have a polling location here on campus instead of 6 blocks away on 7th and Main.
we opened one here on campus, that would be.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they need to like publicize the location. How many does Hayes have?
I can't spell publicize, so I'm gonna say now.
I think it's probably just small enough where it's not an issue, but like providing transportation to location.
I have trouble walking across campus. I would love transportation. I think Lyft was doing a promotion that day that they would cover the cost of getting you to the polling location. I don't know if they were gonna cover the cost back, but. What else? Did you know that you could register to vote here in Hayes? But because you live here for longer than 6 months, you have an actual address, you can register to vote here. Assuming none of you are convicted felons. It wasn't this past election, but last year, 2020, where there was an amendment to the Kansas Constitution that said that the people who live in an area are counted for the purposes of apportioning districts rather than the people who are just residents of that area, which applies to college towns and military towns. So like Riley County got a lot more massive because of Fort Riley and K-State. But also Ellis County got a lot bigger because we suddenly had 5,000 students that are now counted towards our population rather than apportioned throughout the rest of Kansas. What else could get you to vote? We have announced polling locations. We are having a polling location maybe on campus, transportation to polls for students who live outside those areas.
There would have to be some sort of like civic engagement, because people are just really disenfranchised at this point, where they don't really participate in the process anymore.
I thought it was a good idea when they had that like public forum for the school board and city commission here. Because I think a lot of people just don't pay attention to like national elections.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so that's probably why there's such a low turnout.
And going to your point about getting people engaged, that's the entire purpose behind that. I know no one really reads Tiger Daily, but right before an election, they typically do something.
There are a lot more.
And to be quite honest, like, it would not be outside the norm for someone who works in the Department of Education to be nominated and serve on the school board just through College of Education students. Like, I think the highest voter turnout was for Wagner. He got like 280 votes. Yeah. The people who are in Rarick right now could probably throw an election. Like, if we wanted to like really put someone in power in the city of Hayes, just need to get everyone who has classes in Rarick to vote for someone.
You want to be on the council?
Absolutely not. I don't want to do that.
You're right.
So what does this process look like? How would we see if there's a change?
Just simply look at voter turnout.
Yeah, percent of registered voters versus percent of people who voted. Percent of the population who is registered compared to the people who voted. Okay, so when we're looking at evaluation research, it is very, like, it's functionally the same as doing any kind of research. It's just, now you're working with an agency. So let's pick an agency. Who would we be doing this through? Here's one, American Democracy Project. Who else would we work through? Okay, working through student government to Sorry, there was a Veterans Day email that said I have to do something in order to get holiday credit. I might actually take advantage of that. So work through a student council or yeah. What is it called here? Student government, thank you. To advocate for a polling location.
Work with like local leaders.
Okay, city council, which they probably don't want to piss the students off, because as soon as that happens, someone's going to do something on Snapchat and tank their election.
Work with the like, candidates.
Bring the candidates to campus rather than putting it in the library or where they have the, you know, Beach Schmidt. Like, I mean, I know students probably not opposed to going to Beach Schmidt, but having a student focused event rather than a bring everyone from town in. Do 2 events. State election board. Like, also looking at things like the state Congress and US Congress. Bring those people here. Okay. So when we're looking at the evaluation process, here's what it basically looks like. Anytime you're doing an evaluation and problem analysis, you should go through these steps. All right. First, you should do problem analysis. This is basically identifying where and how you can intervene in a situation. So going back to Logan's example about intervening in abused children to make sure they don't offend as adults. You're probably not going to have the resources to intervene in every abuse case. You're going to want to prioritize to get the most efficient use of your money. All right. So you need to identify that. To do that, pre-test. When you do something, all these things, and see if it affects your goal. So what intervention would you want to do?
Like basic screening too.
Okay, do ACEs screening in schools to see if what?
Interview with those kids that have high risk.
Okay. So systematic ACE screening for, let's pick an age, 8? Of all 8-year-olds, everyone who enters, was that 2nd grade? This was very long ago.
Sorry.
3rd grade. Okay, all 3rd graders will get screened through ACE, and then anyone who has a high ACE score will get additional resources. Okay. The evaluation component is just seeing if things have changed. All right. So you would do, like, you would look at your voter turnout in this instance. See, okay, well, where are our high voting locations? What areas of town? What little precincts or districts in town have the highest level of voter turnout relative to everyone else? Did that change? Did the pre-test voter turnout change for any of the districts? Okay. What are other people's topics? We got ACE and early intervention, mental health first aid. Kay, what are you doing? Police burnout. Okay, so tell me how you would do a problem analysis in that case. Well, what predicts police burnout? Or burnout in general? So to do an evaluation study of something like police burnout, you would just look at all the different factors and see, okay, who's burning out? What are their coping mechanisms? What can we do to help them? Do whatever you think is going to help them and see if that happens, if that changed. All right. Making sense? Anytime we're doing this, our goal is to see if we're having an actual impact. Are our policies being implemented as planned, and are they achieving the intended goals? Okay. The reason why we have to answer both questions is because we need to make sure it's not just a fluke. Because it's entirely possible that by asking questions about burnout and telling officers that they are burned out, they start making healthier decisions. Like, oh, I didn't realize I was that bad. I'm going to make an effort to go work out and spend time outdoors and do all the other things that can help reduce burnout. Or I'm going to request a change in job.
Now, what are the differences in like a study on that? Because of course you have to partner with agencies to get access to those officers.
Mhm.
And so if you make this like an agency level issue, like saying, you know, agency characteristics are the reason officers are burning out, they may not like that, but if you present it like an individual level issue of like, you know, these are the things they're experiencing and these are the consequences, and this is what we should do to help. Not a question.
Yeah, you kind of did.
Yeah.
So, yes, there is absolutely an element of the fact that if you tell an agency that something bad has happened or bad is continuing to happen, they may not want to hear it. However, by telling them that there's something bad that happened and also proposing a solution, you're not the bad guy. You're the person trying to help. So go back to Logan's example. A school is probably going to be very concerned about all the students that have high ACE scores. All right. And realistically, they're probably not going to be surprised by the students who do have high ACE scores. They're also going to be the ones showing academic and disciplinary issues. And even then, if it gets out, the school has a high proportion of students that have adverse childhood experiences. You're doing something to help. So the evaluation research is not just the problem analysis. You have to do both. If it's just the problem analysis, you're just doing secondary data. All right. Evaluation research has that additional component of you doing something and seeing the impact. Okay. So when you're looking at that impact, you're trying to answer the two questions. The impact assessment basically asks, did a change happen? Did it go in the expected direction? Did we decrease officer burnout? The also important component is the process evaluation. Is it being implemented as we planned, as we designed? Okay, and this is often done at the same time because it makes no sense to get all the way through the impact assessment and then have to go back and see, hey, did you guys do it correctly? You want to make sure, okay, this is being done correctly so that even if you don't show an impact, you're at least ruling this policy out. Does that make sense? All right, so to get started doing this, the first step is the researcher has to determine whether they can actually evaluate the policy as it's written. Okay, does the policy have a specific goal in mind? Is it recommending that something be done? Okay. And then you have to look at the logistical issues. Does the organization even want you there? Like, going back to that increasing voter turnout, like there's been a concerted push among political groups to limit voter turnout. Okay. Particularly among your age group, college students. So if you're partnering with an organization that does that, they're probably not going to want you to do anything, which means you're kind of screwed, to be honest. Or at least you can't do a full-blown evaluation research. You may have to do it of type. All right. Related to this, you also have to look at the availability of the data and the reports that you're going to need, because you are going to be using agency level data. The data is going to be produced by the agency. So you need to make sure you have access. This may include things like security clearances, password protected computers, flash drives. It may mean that you need a desk at the agency because they may not want that information leaving the building. Related to this, you also need to know who is working for whom. Are you working for the agency? Are you working for an outside evaluator? Are you just someone who's working for a university and partnering with the agency? Okay. And lastly, you need to know what the goals and objectives of the program are. You, as the researcher, cannot decide what these goals are. Okay. You have to work with the agency to help them achieve their goals. All right. So we've got 30 minutes left of class. Here's what I want to do. I want you each to come up with a policy or a training that you could evaluate. All right, something we haven't talked about and hopefully that you aren't researching. Okay. We'll spend 10 minutes doing that. And we'll talk about how we would actually go about evaluating that.
Just don't do our paper topic.
Try to avoid it just because, well, actually screw it. Yes, do your paper topic. Pick a policy or a training that can help you achieve the goal or research what you're looking at. So ACE surveys in college, mental health first aid, a particular training to avoid burnout. All right. Think about how you would structure this, and we're going to go through this in class. All right. So we'll stop the notes there. We'll pick up in a few minutes.
Well, at first it was different. If you need more research, like my entire thing was arbitrary,
Yeah, that.
That hurt me.
Right, at this point, every article
$1 on course, so that it was all the same track. And I'm reading in conclusion, this article is the same as the last 6 I've read. So it is disturbing. You think I started my paper? You're fine, honey.
I thought you were doing yours over the long spoon kid.
No, that's Savannah.
Oh,
I got.
At that point, I haven't even looked at that point of, having my mom kill me.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at it.
Even our final position papers do that.
I really like this one. So, what are you guys gonna tell him?
Well, so before I was at a switch to a research conference. I was gonna talk about your rights and your opinion on employees, because people don't, like, not choose for some, like,
Well, now we can't leave.
Why would you want to leave? Who wants to write up with the paper, what they want to do?
where do you want me to start? And please have an answer to that question, because I don't know where I should start.
What are you trying to do? What are your goals?
I'm trying to provide a more comprehensive education to upcoming law enforcement professionals on mental health topics.
Okay,
So it's basically increasing their mental health literacy. And to start doing that, I have to understand, the types of programs that up and coming professionals already go through. So sometimes they get a high school diploma. Sometimes they have university education. Oh, hold on, not high school diploma, they all have that. Or they go to academy. So these are the
they'll all
two,
do that too.
what?
They'll all do that too. Yeah. Okay.
Right, but you can get academy education without having university education.
Correct. But here's an issue for research.
Mhm.
You need variability. Okay, you can't say gender causes crime if you're only looking at males.
Right.
So you can't say the academy provides a level of mental health education unless you have multiple academies.
I don't get what you mean.
So you need Kansas Law Enforcement Academy, the Riley County Academy, Sedgwick County, Shawnee County, Johnson County.
So it's not all standardized training across all of them? Oh, I am changing my topic then. Nope, that's the end of that.
Well, no. Because if
That would seem like the logical thing to do.
there's going to be a standardized basis, but all of them are going to do it differently.
Right, and that's what I
So-
want to know is what is their
All
standard
right,
curriculum?
so. The type on.
Okay.
So you need to know what academy each officer went to.
So this would just be underlying education. So if they had university education or just a high school education.
Right, so this would be 1 or 0, and then if they went to a university, program, and then curriculum program. All right. Because if they went to Fort Hayes and they got a business degree, who gives a shit what their curriculum is?
Right.
Because they didn't get a mental health degree
Okay.
or mental health education.
Mhm.
However, we have criminal justice has mental health education, sociology has mental health, social work, psychology.
Mhm.
So you need to know, okay, which program and what mental health courses did they take?
Okay. So once we do that, then we need a standardized assessment of their mental health literacy, which can be done in several different ways.
survey.
Yep.
Standardized.
I don't remember the specific measures I want to use, but like looking at general, sit down.
No, it's fine. That's fine. You don't remember. So what are you doing?
I am trying to understand what their mental health literacy is before they're exposed to anything
Okay.
or exposed to what I'm developing.
Okay. So you want to do an intervention. You'll need impact. Process. If you want to make sure you're improving literacy,
Well,
you're
actually,
changing it.
no, I want to step back because that's mental health first aid and I'm not trying to do that. So this is supposed to be through their educational experience, like when they start education, what is their literacy?
Okay.
What is their literacy throughout education? What's their literacy at the end of education? Because if it doesn't improve at all, then you know there's not either well delivered or developed mental health components.
Okay.
So then it's trying to argue that you need to start introducing those components or delivering them in a better format.
Okay. So this is your paper, but for an evaluation, you would need to know the components of the intervention. So mental health first aid course.
Right.
See if it's having an impact on this. And then do a process evaluation. See if it's being implemented correctly.
Mhm.
All right. With your overall goal being improving what? So what is the goal of mental health literacy?
The end goal is if you have developed mental health curriculum, that the people who go through that are going to have higher levels of mental health literacy when they enter their profession.
Okay. With the end goal being what?
Officers are better able to cope with their experiences while on the job, and they're
Okay.
also able to interact with mentally ill individuals better. Because officers go through a lot of shit. Probably also reduce stigma. Because I'm assuming there will be some sort of residual effect on this. If you have all these people together and teach them these things and then send them out into the world, then they can be advocates and wherever they end up.
Okay. So reducing stigma would be harder to measure
Right.
in a study like this. However, you already have information on officers going through the academy. You already have access to those officers.
Right.
All right. So if you give all of them this mental health literacy assessment, give them all mental health training, and then follow their careers. See if they burn out, change careers, change jobs frequently, give them an assessment you might borrow from Kay.
Mhm.
And see if interactions with mentally ill individuals improve.
So I think I'm changing my topic now. Why? This
Is separate from, it sounds like, your topic.
So I'm trying to measure what currently exists in curriculum
Okay,
and then say that because this is not being done well, it needs to be improved. So actually, specifically, I wanted to follow criminal justice students who went into their various programs,
mhm,
so specifically them, assess the curriculums that they go through, and then basically argue that those programs do not provide enough mental health related components.
okay,
And because of that, students who then go through criminal justice programs and go into law enforcement are exposed to these host of things that they're not prepared for.
all right. So then I would say you would stop over here for your paper. But for the rest of the evaluation, it sounds like you want to actually do something, you have to do these steps. Does that make sense? So you don't need to change your paper. But to actually do what you're planning on doing, you would need to do these things. Your paper is fine because you're doing content analysis on the curriculum, all right?
And I just want to measure their literacy throughout this curriculum.
Right.
And basically see, does it change? Where does it change? Why does it change?
Well, you don't change the topic. But to actually improve mental health literacy, you would need to do these things. Make sense?
I don't know if I have an intervention phase, so.
You don't need one. This is just you working through this chapter's content on the board with your topic, because you're already familiar with this stuff. And I'm just making you do an additional component that you might not have done before.
Oh, okay.
All right,
So
this is an
meaning-
this is a purely hypothetical exercise, not you doing your actual full-blown experiment right here.
Okay.
Okay. No one needs to freak out. Like, Kay, you don't need to like do an intervention for police burnout. You can just say, I want to study police burnout. And then you and I and the rest of the class, if you guys decide to participate, will work through what intervention could work, how we would structure it, all that other kind of stuff. Making sense?
No,
Fine, it's fine.
I'm now less confident.
Your paper is this.
I just feel like what I'm gonna write isn't what they're gonna be looking for.
Again, all I want to know is your research question and how you measure it and the rest of the rubric.
So if I just want to measure their literacy throughout whatever program they're going through and then provide recommendations on that, that is fine.
That is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So I could look at like implementing ACE.
Oh, you're coming up. You're coming up. Okay, so your paper is separate from the evaluation thing we're discussing right now. Okay, clarify a little bit. So your paper sounds like it's what can we do to help kids avoid offending in the future? All right, so okay, here, IV, the AACE, what's your DV? Can't do rates. No, this gets into stats, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
But if you're collecting ACE information, you're also collecting a bunch of other things. Gender, socioeconomic status, all this other stuff. So you're trying to predict whether or not they're going to offend.
I'm just like looking at this from like a comparative lens.
What do you mean?
Maybe you're gonna explain this later, but like if we identify ACE levels in this population, but then we know in a different population that similar ACE levels have like this.
So that would be a comparative. And we give all the students, all the third graders, the ACE survey, and then collect a bunch of other relevant information, gender, socioeconomic status, whatever, and then break them into groups. And this is where we would step into rates. Okay, but if you're just taking a look at all the third graders in campus, you're giving all of them the ACE. And follow them through time. That's the only way you can predict this point. Does that make sense? Okay. So which way do you want to go? You want to do everyone gets the ACE and you're trying to predict everyone, or are you trying to predict what factors outside of the ACE impact probability of offending? Okay. Goodbye comparative. So controls. Demographics. I included a mental health assessment just because you gonna want to account for things like learning disabilities, childhood mental illness, that kind of stuff. So, separate from your topic, to clarify, what intervention could you do to impact probability of offending?
Services for those who have
Okay. Intervention. Okay, additional services, I'll let you define what that is. Right. So, to evaluate this, you would gather all this information. Okay. Figure out, okay, here are my students who have the high A scores. Set whatever cutoff you need, top 10%, top 50%, whatever. Give that group additional services. And then this would necessarily be pre-experimental because you would not have a control group. And you'd see who offended after getting the additional services. Makes sense? So the process evaluation component would be seeing or making sure that the services were implemented correctly. Make sense? Who's next?
I'll go.
Right. Come on up. I'm tired of writing. Your turn.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna get mad that I'm even gonna ask this because I feel like I should know. The independent variable is one that changes, right? Okay,
It's the thing you have control over,
okay.
or the thing that is predicting the other thing. Your dependent variable is your goal. What are you trying to do? Okay,
Okay, I feel like there's a lot of things that could be the independent variable. Just one.
just one, something you can have control over.
Okay, that work?
Sure.
Okay,
So you're giving people cognitive behavioral therapy and trying to see if drug use declines, right? So how would you do the impact evaluation? How far away, how long are you going to follow these people?
there's a lot to it just because it's gonna matter how often they go, how intense their drug use is, how long they've been a drug offender.
Okay, so controls. That's where you gather a lot of this information. Would be drug use, high frequency, length of use, demographics. That always matters.
like exposure to trauma. Like childhood experiences.
Well, I won't put that in there because someone who's just a severe pothead may not have a mental health disorder other than substance abuse disorder. Okay. So, length of or how long do you want to take the study?
Do it here.
Okay. For 12 months. How are you collecting the data? This. Condense this a little bit. Drug use. I mean, you have three basic ways. Self-report survey, your analysis, re-arrest.
I think like actually, definitely not the self-report. I would say like actually testing them. I mean, I would want to see like if they actually report it, but that's not like the main thing I'd want to go off of.
Well, that's a good thing to point out. You're trying to figure out if it impacts drug use, but it could also impact other things. Other technical violations like showing up to your meetings, attending all of your counseling sessions, maintaining a job, like that would be a related dependent variable, even if your key one is reducing drug use. And even if you don't want to be the person, doing your analysis, that's something that probation officers are great for. And they could do it for you and just tell you if someone popped positive. Okay. So how would you gather a process or do a process evaluation for cognitive behavioral therapy?
Would have a group that does do. I don't think I would want to do like nobody does it. I don't think that's maybe would be unethical.
It might be a little unethical to deprive someone of treatment for something.
So I'd say like the frequency.
Okay.
Have people go like once a week and other people go like monthly.
Let's see your meetings. But how would you make sure that the cognitive behavioral therapy is being done correctly? This is something you probably hate if you are having it done to you.
Have somebody examine it.
Absolutely. You're going to have someone grade the therapist, and they get pissy when you do this.
But would you be the like? Would we be the ones?
You can. Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if that's like
Yeah. That's actually something that I did as a grad student was I graded people on whether or not they can effectively do a probation meeting, the effective practices and community supervision program. Our goal was to impact all of these things, drug use, recidivism, technical violations, to make sure that we're improving people in the program. So the process evaluation was the component that I worked on, was listening to recorded meetings and grading the probation officers. I might still have the coding sheet. I'm pretty sure April does as well. So, like, your paper may be doing the does cognitive behavioral therapy impact drug use, accounting for all these other factors. So you may be doing a small chunk of this bigger research project where you would have to do a longer observation time. You have to grade the people who are implementing the therapy. You have to account for all these other factors and how they might change. Okay. Give you guys just an idea. I guess we're out of time, so sorry for keeping you almost late. any research topic that you do can lead to multiple studies. So, Kay, you wanting to do police burnout? Like if you do an impact evaluation on this study, that's, does police burnout decrease? But also, what factors affect police burnout? So you might be able to compare officer assignment, officer length of service. What makes the rookies burn out versus the veterans?
So what can we do with therapy, and,
Yeah,
you know, it's not, you know, the work a certain amount of hours in a week,
right,
and then like you can actually do like to decrease burnout.
right. Your goal is to decrease burnout. So your dependent variable would be, well, what level of burnout are you?
Yeah,
So-
I think it's 3.
Yeah. I think that tracks. It's been a while since I've taken organizational psych, so I'm a little rusty. But you might, your dependent variable might be a scale from organizational psych about burnout. And hey, guess what? If it's a scale and it's already done in psychology, which they're really, really good at, link the scale. Find the citation, say, I'm going to use this scale. It's this long. It has this many questions on it. Good, done. Easy peasy. Make sense? All right, we'll pick up with this on Thursday. Sorry for putting like the 3 of you on the spot. I promise I will get you 2 next time.
Have a good day.
You too. See you, Sydney.